Happy Webinar Wednesday to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend with us and learn a little bit today. I am very, very excited about today's presenter. We have not ever covered a topic like this before, so I'm so excited to be joined by Dr. Watkins today. So before I turn it over, I will do a couple of housekeeping things. If you've been here before, you know it already, but just to let you know, everyone will get a recording of today's webinar. We are recording it, so if you have to leave early, if you joined late, then you will get that recording, so don't worry about that. I also pinned a comment in the chat to our YouTube channel, so that is where the recording will be posted if you don't get the email. So feel free to go ahead and like and subscribe so you get those notifications. It should be posted in about 24 hours. So as always, you guys never let me down. You've already started the chat, and thank you so much for hopping in. Let's see, who had the first comment? Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for starting off with a very positive and wonderful message. I very much appreciate that. So hello to all of you for jumping in, letting us know where you're from. Let's see, I see North Carolina, Nashville, Atlanta, Houston, Chicago. Beautiful. I think I saw Poland on here as well. Hello from Germany. So very exciting. Dr. Watkins is from Utah, so any Utahians in the house? I don't know if that's that's probably not the right way to refer to it, but represent if you're from Utah. All right, so at the end of our session, Dr. Watkins has been kind enough to answer your questions. So you've obviously found the chat. If you look beside of that, there is a Q&A tab. Feel free to drop your questions in there, and we will grab them at the end. And without further ado, I will introduce our fabulous guest today. So Dr. Sherrá Watkins is a certified clinical psychotherapist and coach with over 10 years of experience helping her clients overcome a wide range of psychological and emotional issues. With a background in mental health counseling, rehabilitation and addiction recovery, and sexual assault advocacy, Dr. Watkins is passionate about empowering people of all backgrounds to improve their well-being and practice emotional healing. As a highly sought-after presenter and keynote speaker, she's dedicated to sharing the tools and knowledge her readers need to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. Dr. Watkins currently resides in Salt Lake City, Utah, with her husband, Lorenza, and two boys, William and Bryson. She is the author of Healing in Review, an insightful guide designed to help readers reflect and record on their healing and counseling or coaching, and Healing in Color, its corresponding motivational coloring book. I'm excited. I know you're excited, so I will stop talking and turn it over to Dr. Watkins. Dr. Watkins, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here this wonderful morning. So I bring you greetings from the beautiful state of Utah. And then as was mentioned, hello, everyone, as you're coming from different parts of the country and from the world. And I heard someone from my home state of North Carolina. So hello from my home state of North Carolina, born and raised in Winston-Salem. So to jump in to get us started, this is our agenda that we will be covering for today's workshop. I want to provide an overview and to give you 8 steps and tips that I took to help me to start from scratch. I have never written a book, journal, a healing notebook before. I have written peer-reviewed articles as being a researcher and former professor. And so this was new for me. And so I believe in giving back what was freely given to me as being a clinician and working with those in recovery of different types, from mental health to substance use. And so this is a wonderful way in the month of mental health awareness to be able to show you all some great tips that hopefully will benefit you and the people that you serve. So as we're talking about why this is very much an important topic, we know that mental health and wellness is a very hot topic right now in the entire world, in different countries. In the US, in stating this statistic, we know that there's an average of 1 in 5 adults who experience mental illness of some sort each year. And so as we're looking at the statistics coming from the US, and it varies from country to country, many adults are seeking self-help products as an adjuvant to help guide them in their healing journey. And as you see, I'm using the word healing journey, and I'm using the word mental illness, and you'll will also hear me use the word wellness, because I think it's very important that as we're using the topic and the background of Mental Health Awareness Month, that I'm very cognizant in saying that I'm not using the word counseling, because everyone in their healing journey needs to have agency and what that journey looks like. So because we as wellness professionals of varying different types are creating products to reach our masses, we need to have different tools and tips to curate wellness notebooks of different sorts that reach our target audience in their niches. So the different types of tips and tools that I will be providing will work with any type of niche and different types of populations that you work with. So the very first tip that I would like to talk about is really understanding your competition. So whether you are a wellness coach, a nutritionist, a Reiki practitioner, I believe in somatic healing, you are a psychologist or a social worker, whatever it may be, if you're going to curate any type of wellness tool, particularly your notebook, you have to understand what your competition is. So within this, tip number one, you need to look at wellness journals, wellness tools that are already available on different types of selling websites. So for example, Amazon, Lulu, Barnes and Noble, those types of websites, and look at the reviews of what the audience are saying about those products, good, bad, and ugly, and really appreciate those reviews and how those products could be reviewed. And have a notebook and taking those tips down, or create a Word document of what the reviewers are saying about those notebooks, whether it's a workbook, whether it's a journal. Some of the most simple ones is, I thought I was getting this type of product based off this review, and that's not what I got. Or it would have been better if they would have added these two pieces to this type of this purchase in this product. Then write that down, because that can be a key indicator of what certain types of populations and audiences are looking for. Number two, as wellness professionals, with the different types of clients that we are working with, oftentimes when we're in sessions, I know for myself, I have to sometimes create it on the spot, because I'm doing a session, whether it's coaching or counseling sessions, and I'm trying to do an intervention with the client, and I find them getting stuck, or as a therapist, I cannot give the answer to my client. And so I'm trying to guide them to kind of get that aha moment. And so I'm having to create things that are not already out there, a worksheet that's not already out there, or a homework assignment that's not already out there. And so as I'm creating it, I'm creating these very great tools that I'm reusing with my clients over and over again. And now I have this wealth of information of all these different types of worksheets and all these different types of tools. And some of them may fall into a theme, and some of them may just fall into a workbook, or some of them may even, as I heard some people mention, can lead to me as a clinician or a coach creating a workshop or webinar and working with certain types of populations, and then creating the adjuvant workbook to go along with that webinar of the different types of interventions that I've used with that population to go along with that webinar. So if you have created different types of techniques and different types of tools that is not out there currently, you have found what we call a gap. And identifying that gap creates a market for you based off your own creativity. And that's how I came up with my current book. I found myself working with my clients, and I will be asking some simple questions such as, clients will say, "Oh, Dr. Sherrá, you just said something that was so brilliant." And I said, "I did?" They said, "What did you say?" And I said, "I can't remember what I said sometimes 2 minutes ago." Based off of how I do therapy, I try to be in the moment. That's the mindfulness piece. And sometimes I can remember and sometimes I can't. And so I always suggest to my clients to bring their notebooks to their sessions so they can write down these nuggets or these aha moments. And so they finally, after a while, would get it. And then we ran to the second problem, number two. They will come, but they will have different notebooks after different notebooks. And I would say, "Well, where's the notebook from the last session?" They're like, "Oh, I just grabbed another notebook." And so they couldn't go back to that same notebook from the previous session because they just grabbed any old notebook. And I said, and I will make the recommendation that they need to have the same notebook so they can begin to track their progress in their therapy sessions. And so one of my clients finally said, "Well, why don't you just create the notebook so we can track it?" And I automatically know that this particular blue notebook that says therapy or counseling on it is what I need to bring to therapy every single time. And I kept hearing it over and over again. I said, you know what? I'm going to create it. And if I create it, that means that you're going to buy this. If you create it, we'll buy it. That means I know that this is my therapy notebook when I come to therapy with you. And number two, the last one for number 3, some guided questions that you can ask yourself as you're trying to understand your competition. What problems can your notebook solve? Is there a theme that's currently in demand that you are an expert in? Is there a common theme or repeated keywords or design elements in these products that you're starting to see over and over again, or even in your clients that you're seeing over and over again? For a while, within COVID, everyone was dealing with loss and grief, and not necessarily through death and dying. Loss and grief can show up in many different ways. Loss and grief through losing relationships, through, once again, distance and absence, loss of jobs. And so many people during COVID began to write many different types of healing notebooks and dealing with grief as far as death and dying, which was great. But I had many clients talking about, I miss my family and that connection and that sense of touch. Where were the healing notebooks in dealing with that? So sometimes we have to also see the common themes and also the repeated ideas that is being shown in our current market, in social media, and also within media as a whole. And can you create a unique spin or improve on an existing journal or healing notebook? Sometimes it's your expertise and your knowledge that can once again create a unique difference. Number 2, identifying your target audience. We oftentimes have many different eclectic type of audiences if we are a generalist as far as a wellness professional. And then there may be many of us who have been able to narrow down our niches of the types of clients that we serve. And it doesn't matter where you may fall on that paradigm, but we need to be able to identify what audience or audiences is our healing notebook going to target. So you need to determine what your niche will be for your notebook. So number 1, decide on a specific focus of your healing notebook or your journal. For example, will it be for weight loss, mental health, substance use, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, any specific type of topic? Who is your audience? Is it for children, tweens, adults, couples, the busy executive? Will this be catered to a specialized audience or population? Someone who is healing or dealing with trauma, someone who is trying to be guided in their spiritual journey and they're searching for something, someone who is healing from divorce or overcoming a divorce, someone who's dealing with some form of grief, navigating relationships. And then lastly, what problem does your audience have? And how can your healing notebook solve that problem or help in guiding in that solving of that problem? So again, these are just a few of the questions that can guide you in understanding your niche. We see, as we're looking at the competition, we see so many different guided journals and guided and healing notebooks that are just generalists, and that works for some. And we're going to talk about why that may work for some, but even in understanding that, in identifying your target audience, you need to understand who those people are, because even this will help you in your marketing. If you're going to have just a general wellness notebook or healing notebook, even understanding your target audience will help you in refining your marketing when you're publicizing it to on these different types of websites and the words and keywords that you use. So you either have to do it in how you design it or in how you market it. Either way, it will have to show up in one or two spaces. Creating your layout and your format. This is very important as you're choosing between writing a workbook, writing a journal, writing a logbook. Are you doing activity type of healing workbook? Are you doing a coloring book or a planner? Are you doing a processing journal? Or for me, my healing notebook is a combination of a couple of different types of a journal. It is a processing journal. They also have things within my healing journal that they use to track in their counseling or coaching session. So it's a tracker and a processor. And towards the end of my healing journal, there also have some of my most popular activities that I have done in my coaching and counseling sessions that are what I call general, meaning that it's things that they can ask themselves as far as general questions about who am I. There's some things in talking about anxiety and also depression, also in establishing goals about career and future. And so I created my healing journal to be a combination of different types of things based off of people who show up in counseling or coaching with your minor to moderate type of issues. So my healing journal is not created for those who are moderate to severe in dealing with mental health or substance use issues. And that can be seen in how I create it in my format, but also in the description of my book. So number one, determine the purpose of your journal. And in that purpose, making sure you design your layout and your format to match that. Number two, as you're taking the time to create your layout, determine what will work best for your journal. Consider your different types of sections, as you heard me state. And so, do you want prompts? Do you want activities? Do you want open-ended questions? Do you want some time to have self-reflected questions? Do you want some coloring activities to kind of break up the monotony in your journal? And then what do you want to use to help the reader to achieve their overall wellness goal? Because whatever you are designing in the layout and format of your wellness journal should help the reader to reach their overall wellness goal. It doesn't mean that the book will help them to reach the goal, but it should help them to achieve the wellness goal as far as within their journey. Number three, in creating your layout and format, we also need to be realistic in using and spending time on the money and with spending money on the images that you are using in that layout and format. Because in the pictures and also in the format and layout that you use, poor pictures, poor formatting, once again, can deter and also give you bad reviews in your journal or in any of your healing types of notebooks. So you have to spend money for quality images and also to get the copyright licenses to be able to use those images commercially. That's very important when you're trying to sell a product versus if you maybe want to use it to internally. If you're not trying to use this product to sell, then you don't have to have the commercial rights. But if you're going to be marketing this product to sell, you need to have the commercial rights to use and to do so. And then also having these quality images goes a long way when trying to meet the requirements of the printing company. All printing companies, which is inclusive of Lulu, will tell you the dimensions of the images that you need to have in order to have good print quality. And then number four, if you are not the key expert on how to create a pleasingly aesthetic format and layout, some of us may need to start out, at least in the beginning, to buy pre-made interiors. So for example, I have provided a screenshot on this PowerPoint of what are a few pages of different parts of my interior of my book look like. Well, I did not buy a pre-made interior, but for some of you all, you may want to buy a pre-made professional interior to make sure that it is pleasing aesthetically. So you can go to different websites such as Fiverr, Gumroad, even Canva has some that you can use. Etsy, Fabrica, Creativa also are some different websites that you can use. Again, quality product goes a long way because you will have reviews from people who purchase your product who will review not just on content, but also on what it looks like. I am lucky enough that my previous degree as being a health education and wellness professional, that's what my first 2 degrees are in, we were required to take marketing classes and learning how to create flyers and learning how to create worksheets. And so all of the things that you see here on the paper, even me creating my workbook, I did myself. The only thing that I did not create myself was the healing coloring book. I paid for a professional to create that. And again, we have to acknowledge what are our strengths. And my strength is not creating a coloring workbook, but my strength is that I can create diagrams, I can create flyers, I can create different other types of tools that I needed for my book. And that was my strength. So recognizing that for some of us, we can create a very low cost healing notebook based off of tools that may be free or low cost, while for some of us, we may have to spend just a little bit of money to make sure that our product comes out to be quality and also pleasing. Also, in designing the format from cover to internal, and also in looking at the cover as far as from front facing to also the back cover of it, there are endless possibilities of what you can use as far as different types of tools that are free or that may incur a fee based off of this particular type of technology application. And even some that provide templates. So I provided just a few different ones that you can use that range from free to a fee. And everyone has pros and cons with it. And starting out with one of the most popular ones is Canva. Canva has a free option and also a fee-based option based off of which one you want to choose. The upgrade in using the fee-based option in Canva allows for you to also have access to more quality images and also more quality templates that you can use. Then you also have Cordial, you also have Bookwrite, and you also have Adobe InDesign. As you move down to some of these other different types of applications, it will require for you to have more technological skills in using those applications. I would say Canva is the most easier out of the options to use, even for someone who is a novice. Bookwrite is also fairly free because it comes more with a template base. But again, many of these products, like with Cordial and Bookwrite, you can create a free account and fiddle around. But again, look at different reviews from other types of authors to see what they may use. There are different types of Facebook groups where you can join to see about producing different types of books of authors. And you can see what other authors are saying or what they use, what were some of the pros and cons. For all of my books that I have created, I have used Canva. And I have purchased different images using other different types of websites, which we're about to talk about next. I will say Adobe InDesign is more for the career professional. Proofreading, editing, and seeking feedback. Before you submit your healing notebook or your journal to a printer, make sure that you proofread and edit your content to make sure you don't have errors. The beauty of Lulu and other print sites is that they do allow for you to go back and re-upload if you do catch an error. However, best practice would be before you do that final submission is to make sure you get people to review or professionals to review to make sure that you're proofreading it. You want to also seek feedback from your healing notebook from colleagues, trusted friends, family members. And even for me, it wasn't just seeking feedback from family members and friends. I had other professional wellness professionals to review the product, especially other coaches and counselors and psychologists who provide these types of services, because I wanted to know, would they buy this product for their clients? And then I also, in regards to family and friends, I sought those out who have sought out counseling or coaching services themselves to see, is this a type of product that they would use if they wanted to track their healing journey? And then when it comes to sample clients, I had, for those clients who had mentioned before that they needed something to track in our sessions, I provided a sample to those clients to get feedback and support with just the tracking part. So not the entire book, but just the tracking component of a piece of my healing notebook. For some of us, we may not have an extended network of family, friends, or colleagues, or even a ready-made set of clients, because you may be newly establishing your business. And so there are websites such as Fiverr and other websites that you can seek out a professional editor to, once again, to review your product and check for errors and offer feedback. So that will cost a small fee. And then also, Lulu also provides you the opportunity before you start dispersing at a large scale to order a proof and sample. And so does other websites. So before you start dispersing at a large scale, order a proof. It goes a long way, because oftentimes there still may be small things such as on the cover where you may have to shift a word or shift a picture because it just slightly shifts as they're going into the print production. And also so that way you can physically see what it looks like when you're holding it in your hand and it's fully printed on the paper. The color may be slightly different. Is this the type of wording in which what you desired it to look like from when you put it from the design to the paper? And after you've done all of that hard work from designing it, editing it, using quality images that you may have had to pay for in regards to the rights and having it as quality images, you want to make sure you are protecting your work. Number one, you want to register and copyright your book. You only have 3 months to register and copyright your book once the work is, number one, published and distributed, and two, before infringement occurs, to recover any total damages and attorney fees. So those are the two ways that you have in regards to registering and copyrighting your book. 3 months to register it before it's published and distributed, and before any type of infringement occurs. So while you're going through that process, as soon as you get the edits back, I suggest go ahead and file and get for copyright and protection before you are moving forward with publishing and putting it on the website. For me, what I found to be the most helpful, because they have like a all-in-one website and package, I use Boker identifier services. And again, everyone's different presentations and gives pros and cons. I use Boker identifying services to buy and obtain my own ISBN numbers, while Lulu does provide you that you can use their ISBN's numbers. There's pros and cons to using ones that's provided to you and purchasing your own. But because we only have a little bit of time, I would just share that I purchased my own. But once I purchased my own, I also was able to kind of buy it within a package within Boker. So within my package, I was able to obtain 10 ISBN numbers and also pay to copyright and register, I think it was 1 or 2 books. I forgot the number of it. And I was able to purchase copyright locks to 2 books. And what the copyrights lock is that it scans the web for unauthorized use of content of that one book that I registered with Boker. So it scans the web for unauthorized use of my content. It identifies suspect infringement websites and creates takedown notices demanding the immediate removal of unauthorized content. Now, with that bulk package that I bought with 10 ISBN numbers, and I want to say, yeah, it was 1 copyright to register a book and then 1 copyrights lock. That's what I purchased for that bundle price. If I want to do copyrights lock and copyrights and registration, I can go and do that for any other book that I do, either separately, or they do have small bundle packages just for copyrights locks and also copyright protection just for those 2 pieces. So that was my preferred method. There are many more other options that you can choose from, but this is what worked for me. And I found that it was easy for me as a newbie to find kind of like a one-size-fits-all website that can provide me multiple protection, and it will alert me if someone was impeding on my infringement of my authorship. Some other benefits that I also loved about Bowker, I will say I did not use those, but again, for those who are trying to find something that's all-inclusive, kind of like a one-stop shop, they also offered cover design, where you either can create it within their website or pay for marketers to create your cover design. And they also offer self-publishing within their website too. Next thing they also offer, you can pay for marketing professionals to market your book. So you can still use Lulu, but if you're not the marketing guru, like I don't know how to get my marketing out there, they can give you tools and resources of like a step-by-step plan of what you can do from day one all the way up to 1 year. And so they have a great package that you can buy for that. So again, it is an investment, but in giving you some copyright and protection, this is a kind of like a one-stop shop website that I found to be useful. And again, choose what works for me, for you. My grandmother had a famous saying back in North Carolina in the South, eat the meat, spit out the bones. So choose the pieces of the website that works for you. And then also don't use the pieces that doesn't work for you. Printing and publishing. If you're going to choose the option of self-publishing, there are a variety of different types of options that are out there, but you should be aware of each website's printing and coloring and size requirements, and also pricing. So as we get to the pricing pieces of it, each of the pricing that you should be aware of is kind of broken down in this next section. There are typically any upfront costs, such as any pre-made items, images, or copyrights. You should consider that as you're formulating a calculation of how much did you have to invest in the creation of your healing notebook. 2, what is the cost based off of Lulu in creating a paperback versus spiral versus a hard copy? What is the cost of printing in color versus black or white? What is the platform's cost in printing the book? And then, do you have a royalty goal? In simple words, is there an amount that you're trying to pocket as far as your own revenue? In trying to think of the overall pricing, in your first book, you may not make a lot. You may just break even. Because you also have to consider going back to the very first slide that we talked about, which is also understanding your competition. You can create a fantastic product, but you may have invested a lot in your first book with quality images and trying to get started, because sometimes you can buy images in a bulk package that you can use for multiple books to carry on, but that upfront cost may have been a very hefty price, or spending the money in the very first time to buy for the annual price for Canva. That price kind of goes into the beginning price that you may have spent. Therefore, you can't charge $39.99 for your first book, Healing Notebook, because your competition is only charging $10.99. So that is something to consider when you're trying to design your pricing model. How much will you have to kind of eat some of those costs in your startup, but also should consider when looking at your overall royalty goal that you may want to have. And then in the last part of looking at printing and publishing, what is the preferred method that you want to have in your binding process? There are several different options to choose from. Spiral, perfect bound, which is the traditional paperback, hardcover, which can be hardcover all the way around, or hardcover with a Dutch jacket. Excuse me. Saddle stitch. The pages can be also inside the planner or folded, or once again folded within it, or stapled alongside the spine. There's so many different options that different websites may offer, and Lulu provides you with the ones that they offer. What I found when doing reviews with family members, friends, clients, and other wellness professionals is that I had a 60-40 split. 60% of the reviews I got back says, I want a spiral notebook. And I'm going to pause and see what you all can guess in the chat. Why do you think, for those who are wellness professionals and those who are a typical recipient of any type of health or wellness service, suggested a spiral type of binding for this notebook? What do you think were some of the main reasons why 60% of those who reviewed my product stated that a spiral type of binding was the best recommendation? Perfect. I don't want to mispronounce your name, but I think it may be Evian, Angelica. Yes, to write it on your lap. That was the perfect answer. Again, if they're sitting in your session, are they sometimes right now, because of privacy, even because of COVID, there were multiple people at home. Some will go into their closet or their car. They want to be able to hold it like this or to be able to fold it back. So the spiral bound was the preferred method, so they can be able to lay it flat. And many of them were willing to pay the additional higher cost for that purchase price. And so what I have seen is that I have had about 60% more sales and profit of the spiral bound versus the perfect bound book. So in the reviews and also in the after purchase profits, that's what I've seen. So that's why it's good to get reviews when creating healing notebooks and the types of products that you're creating, to get those types of answers prior to creating it. And as we're kind of looking at the last slide to wrap up before we get into Q&A, marketing. For many of us wellness professionals, we are great narrators. We are great in talking one-on-one in groups, and even many of us do keynotes and large workshops. But marketing is something different. That's a little bit outside of our norm. So here are some things that I have done and have heard from coaches and mentors that has worked. Number one, designing your own product markup. So the pictures that you all have seen throughout the slideshow and presentation, from the very first slide to here, is what we call a product markup. You need to have pictures of your book, so that way people can see what it looks like standing up, someone holding it, anything along those lines. That's a product markup. You can do some of that within Canva, and you see it says some. They only have a few different options for that for a book. They also have other websites such as Mockup Studio, Thread.io, and Artboard. You need to have different types of that. And also, particularly when you're doing coloring books, you want to have different types of options where you can see colored pencils, markers beside it, because it makes a difference between what a coloring book mockup will look like versus a book. Create a Pinterest account for your planners to optimize planner pins for in search options. Consider listing and selling cost, because again, when you're listing it for marketing, you have to think of the list fee, the seller's commission, but also on some of these websites where you may be listing, some of it costs to market on their websites, especially for like different types of websites that are for authors, or where you may be asking this website for a review. That may need to be taken into consideration if you want to have some of these high profile authored review websites. It is great because they have a built-in market of book buyers. However, it comes at a cost. However, on the downside, that last bullet, you also can work with book reviewers. Some of them would do it for free, depending on the type of content of the book that you may be asking them to review. And then some of them have small fees. For me, how I got around that, if I asked a colleague who was working in the wellness field to do the review, I provided two things. Number one, I asked for a review for edit. I also asked for a written review that I can put in the book. I also use it in marketing products such as my bookmarks and also for my website. I got them to sign a release for that. And I also gave them a free product to promote. I also, as we move to the far bottom right, I created t-shirts, pins, bookmarks, and I've also used it in the promotion of future next books and journals, and also use it in speaking engagements. Now, that for me, that's a little iffy because I work in higher education, so I cannot do it in certain types of speaking engagements. But if I'm working within my my private practice, which is Sister Wells, then I can. But what I have found in certain speaking engagements that's related to higher education, I have been asked to talk about my book because mental health is a big crisis within college campuses, and many counseling centers have asked how it can be used within their counseling centers for students to track their healing journey. Partnering with other authors to do a joint book talk and share. The person who wrote my entry into my book, my prologue, was another counselor who also is very well known, who is a former, she was a very first social work counselor, full-time counselor for the Panthers, who happens to have been a mentee of mine. So when the time came up and I needed someone who was well known to write the foreword for my book, I reached out to her because she was well known in the field. She was respected in the field, and she was the first of her kind to work for an NFL team. And so it was only right that I can get someone who was well respected within the industry to write my foreword. Do you have someone within the industry that is well respected to give you credit and credence to your product? And then lastly, to host a launch session via various different types of media platforms within social media, get invited to different podcasts, also have a book launch. Even if you're in a small town, have a book launch, celebrate yourself and your accomplishments. Have family members to host book launches for you. Reach out to your local library, different mental health agencies and wellness agencies. You do have to put yourself out there because as I share with clients, the worst thing that they can say is no. So I have provided you with the best tips and recommendations that I can provide for you in navigating, creating a healing notebook of different types, providing the different types that you can create, but really hoping that you all have a great journey in creating great products for your clients in their healing journey. I wanted to provide you all with how I did use some of those feedbacks in creating bookmarks for my clients. And so I created this last slide to show you what that looks like. And so now I will pause for some questions.
Oh, Dr. Watkins, oh my gosh, that was incredible. I hope that everyone who tuned in today will bookmark this, reference. I mean, there's just so much. I learned a lot. There's just so much information that you included. I mean, just from soup to nuts. I was just thinking as you were going along, I don't know anything that you left out. I feel like as a professional creating a book to support your clients and your business, I think you included all of it. I mean, I'm just so impressed by everything you put in, but I'm not surprised at all. So everyone who is on the call, go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A if you would like. And I saw a couple of you already did that. Before I hop into those, I just wanted to touch on some of the points that you made, and especially with the ISBNs. I would encourage anyone who is trying to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Watkins, which I think you all should. She's clearly a professional in doing this the right way. But buying your own ISBNs can give you a little bit more freedom when you publish. You can also establish your own imprint. So if you have a business, as Dr. Watkins does, then you can put your own imprint in the metadata of the book and just have some more brand continuity. So that's just another bonus. So again, just a masterclass on how to publish professionally that we were all here for. So again, drop your questions in the Q&A, and we'll start with Angelica, who is asking, how do you decide what makes it into the final version of the wellness book? What details to include in knowing what will best meet the needs of your audience?
Oh, great question. So what I've learned in my career as being a wellness professional, I am a dumper, Angelica, and I have great mentors, and I have my team. These are my team who helped to wrangle me in. And these are my team members who, for 3 years, who told me, when are you going to put the book out? because it was my own fears of inadequacy. Even Dr. Sherrá has the same inadequacies. Like, is this going to be good? Are people going to really buy it? But what I found is that once I dumped everything into Canva, I had my team to come in and state, this is good, but we need to delineate the book a little bit more. And now I have, from the parts that they pulled out, they helped me to see, this is for book 2, and this is another niche. And my second niche is really working with historically marginalized women of color who are trying to find and navigate the next section of their life. And that's what I found in the worksheet parts of it, is looking for that with that population that I see in my private practice. It was more about navigation and finding out who their voice is, and what those worksheets were. And so they pulled all of those out and kept this one more general. And I needed that second set of eyes to be able to tell me what that was, because I see 3 sectors of clients in my private practice. I see historically marginalized women of color. I see couples, and I see a very specialized population of clients. I see sex workers. And so I have to make sure when creating this book, I didn't put that third category in this book, but I do have that category who use that for tracking because they're doing a different type of healing. And so I had to make sure that what does this first book look like, and then how do I begin to build the second one? And it was the people that I entrust who helped me to see that.
I love that advice, that even though you're cutting something, that could be your next book. And I haven't heard that before. So that's actually very empowering and really exciting. I know, when you're creating something, it's so hard to whittle it down and figure that out. So it's just a great way to look at it, is this isn't something that you're cutting. It's just something that is material for your next book or your next niche. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for that question, Angelica. So the next question is from Tanya, and she's asking, what is a good way to gauge how many pages to include in the first journal or notebook? I keep adding, and it was preventing me from having a final version.
I don't think there is a set number, but I think the magic piece that I could ask back as far as giving you a question, which is very bad, especially as a therapist, is if you had to think of a person completing it. So not, many of us buy a book and we don't complete a journal. Anything typically over 30 or 40 pages is beyond what most people will complete. So you want them to get to a place of what we call completion, to give them a place to process and figure out what's their next step. So I would say from front to back, mine is like a total of 30 pages, because they should be able to process this and understand, okay, what's my next point? And for you as the author, you want to give them something to come back for. So again, it's not about just cutting it off. You are creating your next product. So it's like a part 2. So as you just heard me mention, just conceptualize the first piece and then create the second piece.
That's great advice. Thank you. And thank you for that question, Tanya. All right, this is a good one. So Rachel's asking, when working as a therapist for a nonprofit, I find myself giving away my journal because I thought selling it to my clients would be a conflict of interest. Is that the case?
I think the very first thing is to really understand your policies and procedures for the nonprofit. Is really asking, what are you allowed to do? And so find out what the policies and procedures are. And then that will determine what you can and can't do. And if they say no, then what I would suggest that you do is recommend to your clients, what I found for you to do to help your healing process is you need something that will be a great intervention tool, and give them a list. Just so happen that yours is on the list too.
You have such great answers. That was wonderful. All right. And thank you for that question, Rachel. Okay. And so Tanya is asking, this is another great question. How do you get past the imposter syndrome? I'm working on a series. I'm working on a series of journals for Black women living in other countries. And I feel like I can't find the voice I am looking for.
Number one, Tanya, email me, because we may have to do a lunch chat. And the reality is, I don't think that we ever get over it. That's why my famous statement, that's why it's called healing in review. I use ING, which means current and future. It's an ever evolving process that I continue to work on every day. But I ask you the same question that my mentors asked me, who's helping to heal you? because the very answer that helps me is that I wouldn't be here without the mentors who saw something in me. And everything that I went through to get here is in this book, and had to be created for the people who need it, that picks it up and buy it. So if you don't create it, the people who need this product to heal in their own healing journey, they're waiting for you.
Very convicting. Thank you. And thank you for that question, Tanya. All right, the last question in the Q&A tab, and then I'll hop over to the chat. I know some of you have dropped some questions over there. Azina is just asking, how do you use Lulu to help sell your books? And are there any resources on the Lulu site that you've used to help sell your books?
I absolutely love Lulu. Of course, I will say I do use other ones, but I think Lulu is the best just because they have templates that are easy to use. So again, getting started, I did my research. I watched webinars. I watched everything you can think of. I read blogs and blurbs and everything. Lulu is the most simplest tool to use, and their templates. I don't know who is in you all's production in the background, but I thank you. I really do. And as we say in the South, it was like clutching pearls in the beginning. I was like, oh, I can release the pearls. This is not going to be as bad as I thought. And so Lulu has helped. And then as you all have seen in some of their videos, I was able to link Lulu to my website for our private practice, Sister Wells, and sell the product on my website without trying to figure out how do I do this. And I'm not an expert when it comes to website development. They made it so simple with just, once again, asking me what's the background website tool that I use, which is WordPress. And they said, well, just do these steps. And I followed it literally like 2 screens and just clicking the buttons and following it. Again, for us who are not gurus in certain expertise, Lulu has it all. And other websites don't provide that for us.
Amazing. Well, thank you. This is not a paid endorsement, but thank you for that question and thank you for that answer. And I have to quote the quote that I learned today from you, but eat the meat and spit out the bones. So as Dr. Watkins mentioned, there are a lot of different platforms that can help you create exactly what you need for your business and your journey. And so Lulu hopes to be a part of that, but there's a lot that can come together in creating exactly what you need. All right, so I will do a last call for questions. Chocolate has a question. Hello, Chocolate. And she says, what are the pros and cons of finding an agent to promote your books? And Dr. Watkins, I'm not sure if you can speak to that, but we'll offer the question.
Chocolate, I tried. I have a cousin who's a curator for the National African American Arts Museum, and he was one of my reviewers, and he said, cousin, you got to get this book out to the masses. And he gave me a whole list of people to reach out to, and in all honesty, no one responded. So I'm a firm believer that it is either it was not within my time, or as I tell clients, it's not right now. If you have the opportunity to reach out, do so, because your journey may not be mine. But the pros is that there is the opportunity to have a larger audience. The cons is that you do lose certain percentages of your royalties, and then certain creative integrity. Some of that voice has to be compromised based off of that agency, and also that publishing company.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And Chocolate, thank you for the question. All right. I think we have one last question. So Donna is asking, could you do a standalone coloring book along with the book as opposed to a spiral healing workbook?
Absolutely. Coloring books are by itself works just as fine. And if you look at the market right now, a coloring book can sell just as well as a journal.
Mm-hmm. I think that goes back into earlier slides when Dr. Watkins just mentioned finding your audience, listening to what they're asking for, and then finding your niche. And to her point, we see coloring books that if you know your audience and that's something that they will resonate with, that can be a successful product, and just as Dr. Watkins has experienced. So, All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Dr. Watkins, I can't thank you enough for your time. This has been inspiring and so informative. Please follow Dr. Watkins, reach out to her. She has her information right there. Again, you will be receiving a recording of this webinar to the email you used to sign up. It will also be on our YouTube channel. Dr. Watkins, I hope that you will come back again and share some more insights. This has just been incredible. You're getting a lot of love in the chat, and we are lucky to have you And again, I just appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Dr. Watkins.
Thank you.